Flosstube, it is Helen D and I'm back with another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to finish a teeny tiny cross-stitched piece in a tea light holder. I stitched a piece and I finished it in this cool spider for a swap that I was in, and then I looked around and I found some more tea light holders, so now I have a bunch to use. So this spider I found on eBay. I tried to find a source like on Amazon, but I couldn't. For the Halloween one, I had to go to eBay. But when I was looking on Amazon, I found these adorable turkeys. This was a set of 6. 3 of them are sitting down and the others are standing up. All equally adorable. And then I also found a whole bunch of different choices of reindeer. If you go on Amazon and you search reindeer tea light holder or reindeer votive holder, you're going to get a bunch of choices. Different shapes, different styles, different colors. One thing that I would look out for these, you want the kind of holder that has, it's shallow and it has that base right there on it. You know, this is like 1/2 inch, all of them. They're like 1/2 inch. They make some that, the deer especially, like this ring was metal and then you set a glass piece down in to hold your candle. That's not going to work as well for these. You want the ones that have the solid bottom. So today we're finishing the turkey, and I stitched this teeny tiny turkey. This is from a chart, an out of print, not an out of print, but a hard to find chart by the trilogy called Secret Turkey Hunt. So what I did before I stitched was I took my tea light and I had to figure out how big it is so that I know what size I can stitch. I have a template, which I will link below. Mine is from Westcott, and it's a jumbo circles template. It has a bunch of different sizes. So what I did with this is I took my tea light. There's all this junk in the way up here. His plumage is in the way. So I flipped him over. And then I went on the back and I measured to see which size circle I need. This one's too big. That one's too big. This 1 5/8. Pretty close. The next one down is a little too small. I want it to be almost as big as the bottom. That's Pepper ripping up a chair. So I'm going to go with the 1 5/8. So then I had to figure out for my stitched piece, if this is 1 5/8, I know that my stitching, I want a little room around the side, should be no bigger than 1.5 inches. Sorry. So I took my phone and my calculator and I just did, 1.5 for 1.5 inches, and then I times that by 16, thinking I could do it on a 16 count scrap, and I got 24, meaning that I could fit approximately 24 stitches by 24 stitches in a circle to get the right size. So then I went through my charts and I found one and I counted them up, and this guy fit the bill. I think he's like 20 by 17 or something. If he were smaller, I could have stitched him on a 14 count or a 28. If he were bigger, I could have gone the other way and stitched him on an 18 count or a 20 count or a 40 count. Depending on how tiny you like your stitches, it depends on what you can fit in there. But my sweet spot for these was going to be a 16 count. This one's actually a 32 count Lugana. I just used scrap. I went through, this is the size of my hand, and that's all I needed. So that's what I did. So now I know I have this 1.58. So to make sure that that's going to work for me, I'm going to take a scrap of paper. I happen to have a scrap of file folder. You could use a cereal box. You could use, you could use regular paper, but it's nice to have a little bit of thickness on it. And I'm just going to measure that out and cut it out, just to make sure that when we're doing our mat board, we have it the size we need. So I'm just going to zip around and cut this out. So I want to make sure that this is going to tuck right down into that candle holder. There's my candle holder. It's going to fit right down in with a little bit of wiggle room, but that's fine because when you wrap the stitched fabric around your mat board, it's going to fill up a little extra space. So that's the size we want, 1.58 for this particular one. The reindeer's going to be a little harder to measure. On that one, I might measure on the top to figure out my dimension. So I have this is my current scrap of mat board from the big sheets. I get mine usually at Michael's. This is what I'm working with. So I'm just going to take a corner, and I'm trying to save as much as possible. So I'm just going to go right up to the corner and trace that 1.58. Then I'm done with my circle board. So now I'm just going to cut this out. I find mat board fairly easy to cut out with regular scissors. I don't need to use an X-Acto knife or anything. So I just cut around it to make it a little easier, and then as I go and I'm making my curves, sometimes I just snip off the edge as I go so that then your scissors have less to have to fight through. I said we were done with that circle board. We're not. We'll need it again in a minute. I also have my hot glue gun warming up over here. Okay, so that is cut out. If some of these pieces are a little larger, I'm going to set those aside. We'll use them in a minute. The rest, the tiny ones, I tossed. Again, just to double check, it's going to fit right in there. Knock that out. So here is our circle. The first one of these I finished, I just wrapped my stitching around the circle, but it ended up being a little flat. So I decided that this time I wanted to add some batting to it. Last time I think I added one piece of batting. This time I want more. So I have cotton batting. Mine's Warm and Natural. It's just kind of what I have. I'm going to take that circle template, find my 1 5/8, my pen, and just trace it right on there. And then I'm going to go right down the line with my smaller circles and trace those on as well, which I already did and cut out to save a little time. So I did my big one, and then I did, I think, 1, 1, and 2, right? I have 5 over there. And then I want 2 of my largest. So I already cut one of my largest. So this will be my second square of my largest. And then we're just going to stack these up. Now because I'm not using this for like a pin cushion, I'm fine using a little tape or glue on these to hold them in place. If you were using it as a pin cushion, then it might be a little tricky because things would get sticky. So here's my circle. Here's one of my big ones. I have a roll of score tape, which is a double-sided acid-free tape. It gets all junky on the edges, but it's thinner and it rips really easy. So it's really easy to just pop a piece off and stick it on there. So I'm going to do that and put on my first one. And then I'll probably end up using a little piece of tape in between each one. So I have to remember which are I'm going to line them up here by smallest to biggest. I'm going to save that big one out, and we'll put the other big one on the end. Sometimes this double-sided tape, the worst part is getting that backing on, especially once you have it on fabric. Yeah, that's going to be a pain. New plan. I'm going to put just a little dab of hot glue. Just enough to hold them in place. I'm going to go right down the line. There's the little one. And then we'll put the big one on top. By putting the big one on top, it kind of hides all those edges from all the other ones that we did. So now we have, that's actually really padded. He'll be a really padded turkey, but they're all good to go. So then I set that aside. Now we just need to get our stitching ready. And this really is a basic circle finish. So we'll end up wrapping this around. So what I'm going to do is put that circle on my stitching and just cut my fabric in a circle. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to cinch it all up in the back. So like mine's, it's not a perfect circle, that's fine. And then we're going to take some thread. I like to use a thicker thread. Mine is a button and craft thread. And I'm leaving this right on the spool. I just pulled it and threw it on my needle. I'm not even going to bother to interface this because it's going on here. It's nothing that I'm going to stuff or poke and prod and need to worry about pulling a stitch. So I trimmed up my threads to make sure there was nothing major, and then starting from the bottom, so starting from like the good side of your stitching, I'm just going to do a little running stitch all the way around. And this is the same way I do all my circle finishes. I love a good circle finish. I think they're forgiving. So right around. I start from the good side of my stitching, kind of the bottom, and then I want to end there as well so that when I'm pulling it, I can see what I'm doing. So here's the front side of my stitching. Both pieces of my floss are coming out of that side. So this is on there. I'm still going to leave my needle and stuff attached. I kind of open it up a little. We're on the back. It's the back of my stitching. Take this piece with all of my batting on it, flip it upside down, set it on there. I might have too much batting because now I'm going to pull this and gather it around my circle. My needle was coming off, so I just pulled it off. I'm going to have to kind of squish mine down because I put a little too much batting in. I could go in and pull one off. That hot glue is not really holding it, but I'm going to see if I can make it work. I can't grab the other piece, it got all twisted. I think I can make it work. Yeah. So I had to kind of squish it on there a little bit. So then I flip to the front and I just kind of move him around, right? Just with my fingers, pushing him around to make sure that he's fairly centered. So then I'm going to take the loose end, put my needle back on. I don't want to waste all this thread. I mean, I could, it's not that much. But I'm just going to go in, hold on to my needle, kind of hold it down with my finger, and pull on the other end. And that's going to pull some of that loose thread through. And then this, I don't want too long pieces because it's going to be in my way. So I'm going to go in and just tie this one off. I just went kind of through the stitching a little bit, made a loop. Just had to pull my extra thread out of there. I'm going to go right through that loop and just make a knot. I'm just going to tie that right off so that then I can cut this piece and get it out of my way. So then the other side, which is still attached to my spool, I'm going to pull off 18 inches. This is a pretty small piece. Cut it off. And then because mine is kind of tight, I have to squish it down in there. Pull these tight and check my front that it's going to work. And then I'm going to zigzag kind of. My thread is coming out down here on the bottom. So I'm going to go up top to one of these top loops, top puckers, Just poke my way right through it and pull. And as I do this, it will tighten everything up on there. And as I do this, I also want to keep an eye on the front to make sure that everything's where I want it to be. So I find one of those loops, just zigzagging across, no rhyme or reason. I have enough thread on here that I can hit them all. And this will really tie it on there. So he looks good on the front. See, I've got all these kind of pokey bits still. As I go, those will tie themselves right in. I can go in, like here's one, right, that's kind of a problem. I'm going to grab it and pull it down in. Here's another one, grab it, pull it down in. And then when I think I have most of them, got another one right there. Pull it down in. That looks pretty good. I kind of have one right here, a little bump. So I'll do one more right there and then I think I'm good. So now I can just tie this one off. Again, I'm just going to go in my fabric, come up, make a loop, go right through it and tie a knot. Because it's my last one, I'll probably do that twice. Look, I didn't want to waste that fabric thread, yet I have all this. So, and then just snip this off. So now my little turkey is all on my circle. So now I just need to get him in here. You could probably use a covered button. I know a lot of people have those covered button kits, but then it wouldn't be puffy. So it's personal choice. So if I just set him in, he's a little low, right? So what I'm going to do is take those little scraps that we cut off. I have a couple more that I had saved from another piece, and I'm going to build up the base so that I can then glue him in and he'll set more toward the top. And then the last thing I'm going to do when I get to that point is I'm going to put a little bit of Rik Rak around the edge just to fill some of that extra space and give it a little extra, just a little extra. So some of my pieces were a little big, so I'll just snip those up. So no rhyme or reason here. I'm not even going to bother to cut them down if they fit. Like this one's kind of wacky. I'm just going to slap a little glue on. My glue gun's being persnickety today. And I don't know how many I need, so I'll probably do like 4 and then set it aside and see if that's enough. If it's not enough, I can add more to it. I'm going to glue the bottom one. And just flip that right upside down in my holder here. So we're MacGyvering some build. So then if I set him in, he's a smidge low. So I'll do 2 more. Build that up. And that's going to be pretty good. That gets him almost flush to the top. Okay, set this aside. Now I'll do this bit of Rik Rak. This is just one I had in my stash. I'm going to trim off the frayed bit. And before I start gluing, I'm going to kind of lay this around and see if it's going to line up, if it's going to play nicely. Pretty good. It will have a little bit, like if I go from there, it would have a little bit of overlap. So now I'm going to see, well, what if I kind of went from the other side? Could I get it a little better? And it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. Still going to be adorable. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit that's kind of doubled up here on the bottom. I'm going to go with that anyway. So I'm just going to find one of my this is, in my view, this is the top of my Rik Rak, and this is the base. So I'll put just a little bit of glue down there on the base. And at the bottom of my piece, just kind of glue that onto the bottom of my piece, right on the edge. Then I will go around my piece, or the Rik Rak, it wouldn't really matter, with a little line of glue. And kind of just keep rolling right around. And this, like I said, will just kind of fill some of that extra space. Except I'm getting it on my fingers. So like I said, you could do it either way. This time I'll do it, just kind of put some on the base of each of my Rik Raks. Zip right around. I'm almost there. Do one more. And then down here on this last one, I'm going to come in and cut it off where they're going to meet. Add a little glue there. Take it off my fingers. And there we have our turkey. And I can kind of push this up a little to open it up. Just gives them a little dimension. So now all that's left to do is to glue him right in. So you have to kind of decide which angle you want it to line up. You can twist him in here and mess around a little bit to figure it out. If it's sitting up a little high, like mine is kind of up a little high, I just ripped a little of that. Maybe I had it too much. Once I have the Rik Rak on there, I want him to nestle down in a little better. So I decided I want him so that he's facing the front. So he's going to kind of tuck in like this. I need one more of those Rik Raks back. Not Rik Raks. One of these. Okay. So then, in this part you got to do a little fast, or if you wanted to do it a little slower, the hot glue dries fast. I'm going to use a little Aleene's because that way I'll have a little more wiggle room time to really get him how I want him. So I'm going to take my Aleene's and pop some. It comes out so hard. You guys have that problem? That's why I don't like Aleene's as much. So I just put some Aleene's right on there, and that way it will dry a little slower and I can take my time getting this guy in there, lined up, and where I want him to be. I want to try and make the Rik Rak even on all sides, like it's a little down right here. So I'll just pull that side up a little, straighten him out, and there we have it. So that will just dry all on its own. And that is another little tea light. Little Rik Rak, my stitching. He's all good to go. I hope this was fun for you. It's been fun to kind of see some of the different shapes and think about what I have that I want to stitch to tuck in there. This one is going to be a gift, but I think I'm going to stitch that exact same thing up for myself because it was super cute and easy if you're looking for a quick gift idea. if you were finishing them multiples at a time, and just finishing them, not talking to the camera, it would finish up pretty quick. So I hope that was helpful and can't wait to see everyone's creativity.